Hello, my name is George and this is Peniel. I'm going to read from Ecclesiastes. When I was a child in Sunday school, we used to have a Bible quiz, and the minister would read out a reference and we had to quickly get our Bibles out and try to find it. And the one that baffled us all was the book of Ecclesiastes, actually finding it. But today I have decided that I'm going to read some verses of Ecclesiastes and meditate upon them, and I expect you to also meditate upon these. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it unto his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of the mourning, but the heart of the fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise man than to hear the song of fools. For as the cracking of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the foot. So is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. That's just a few verses. And you can see that it's rather like the book of Proverbs, because that's what it seems to me these are. And that's not the way we usually think. We don't think, for example, there's a good name. Well, yes, we do think a good name is better than a precious ointment, but we don't think the day of death is better than the day of birth. You need the day of birth, of course, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. But it's inevitable that we will all die. And I think that verse is saying you need to focus upon the day of your death, whenever it is, and ask yourself the question, how will I stand before God? Because there's only two destinations. You're either with the Lord, heaven, or you're not with the Lord, against him in fact, and you're condemned to hell. There's no middle route. There's no neutrality. And therefore, to think about your death and to plan for that, to submit to Christ, to trust in him, is wise. And I think that's what this verse is saying. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. In other words, you're not here just to have a good time. When I look around me at the society we now have, it's all about having a whoopee time, because one day you'll die, and then you won't have a whoopee time. And then, of course, there's the silence about what happens after death, because they either don't know or they're afraid. And I think it's largely the latter. People basically are afraid. So if they deny that there's life after death, if they deny there's a judgment, that's how they're coping with their fear. And fear is a good thing handled wisely. It makes you think, and it makes you ask the question, how will I stand before God? Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness the countenance of the heart is made better. You know, when you're in sorrow, you know you're in sorrow. And you're aware of all the problems. And it says your heart is made better. It's focusing on what matters. If we focus on this world exclusively, we are going to find that we're face to face with God, and he will say, "Depart from me, I never knew you." This world is a bit like tinsel. It will pass away. But heaven and God's new earth will never pass away. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. Again, let's have a whoopee time. Let's go to the parties. Let's go to the pub. Let's get drunk. Or let's just focus upon getting as much as we possibly can in this life. And there's nothing wrong with riches if God has entrusted them to you and you use them wisely. He entrusted riches to King David for him to use wisely. He even entrusted riches to Job for him to use wisely. And then Job was tested when God allowed the devil to take all his riches away, all of his family except his wife, and his health. Everything was gone. Would Job trust the Lord? And his wife added to things by saying, "Just curse God and die." You know what? God was not cursed by Job. Job was puzzled. Job wanted to plead his case with God and ask the questions. But Job remained faithful to God and would not curse him. In fact, he said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." Such was his commitment. Job wasn't a fool. He was a wise man. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. You know, if you're rebuked by the wise, you are also wise if you pay attention. Because a wise person actually loves you and wants you to be on the right path and to make wise decisions. So, if a wise person rebukes you for the things you're doing, stop doing them and choose the better thing that they advise you to do. For as the cracking of the thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. It's all vanity, you know. Just having a good time. And there's nothing else is foolishness. Now, that's not to say you don't celebrate, because you do. People have celebrated things about me, and I've celebrated things about other people. But it's a way of giving thanks to God in my case. Celebrating, giving thanks to God is a good thing. But just having a jolly time and your whole life is like that, that's foolish. And surely oppressing maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. Well, you need to guard your heart. And I trust that you guard your heart. And pray for me that I also guard my heart. And may we all be faithful to God. And if you've not trusted the Lord yet, if you've not trusted Christ's punishment upon the cross, will you do so now? Amen.